Hi there, this is The InEVitable. This is MotorTrend's new podcast where we talk about EVs, cars without steering wheels, our hydrogen future, and everything else that's coming down the road. In other words, where are we going and how are we going to get there? We have an incredible show for you today with a Mr. Reggie Watts, really good guest. Before then, I am joined by Mr. MotorTrend himself, the lowest of the low, Ed Lowe. How you doing, Ed?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me on my own podcast, Jonny. It's great to be here.
It is good to be here.
It is good to be here. And welcome, everybody, to The InEVitable. This is, as Jonny mentioned, on the future of mobility. Jonny would prefer I say the future of the car.
We should have just called it the future of the car. I think InEVitable is a little cornball, but that's just me.
It's a great name because this is the InEVitable podcast from MotorTrend. EVs, electrification, it's all inevitable. And that's what we're talking about.
And I think, actually, this is a really good year for us to be starting this podcast, though, because our big awards are of the year awards. This is really what MotorTrend is known for. If you watch the Super Bowl, you know we give out Truck of the Year, Car of the Year. And guess what? Truck of the Year and Car of the Year this year are EVs. For
the first time in our history, MotorTrend's been giving out Car of the Year since 1949. Both Car and Truck of the Year are EVs.
And really, SUV of the Year is also an EV.
Right.
The Genesis GV70 won our SUV of the Year as a gasoline-powered car. And then they didn't tell us, and they announced they have an electric version.
Months later at the Guangzhou, China Auto Show, they announced an EV version of that vehicle. It could have been the trifecta, but no, instead it is really Car and Truck of the Year. Car of the Year, the Lucid Air, and Truck of the Year, the Rivian R1T.
Yeah.
So, watershed year from MotorTrend in terms of the awards we give, but also really just in terms of interest. As you know, Jonny's been around MotorTrend since
2010, July 2010.
2010, which is 2 years actually. We gave out our first Car of the Year to an electric car company in the fall of 2012. Mm-hmm. That was Tesla Model S.
Mm-hmm. And you and I were both in the room?
In the room in New York City with Elon.
Oh, I meant when we voted, but we're also there with Elon. Yeah,
we were both on the
Hanging
panel.
With Elon.
Yes, we were both on the panel of one of the 11 judges that voted Tesla Model S Car of the Year. We've subsequently given the award to another electric vehicle manufacturer, General Motors.
Yeah, for the Chevy Volt.
Bolt.
Sorry, they got to work on that name. Chevy Bolt, not the Volt. We also gave it to the Volt.
Yes, we gave it to Chevy Volt and Bolt.
Yeah.
But yes, this is the third electric car, Lucid Air, our Car of the Year, electrified. And then, again, Rivian, big news. But what I was saying is we've seen a tremendous amount of interest in electric vehicles. Really, up until honestly, 18 months or so ago, the only stories that would really get a lot of traffic on our website, on motortrend.com, would be Tesla stories. Specifically Tesla product launches. We've been lucky enough to land a bunch of exclusives. We've got exclusive range tests, Cybertruck, Model 3, when we did the long range Model S. And every one of those, huge traffic numbers. Every other EV, not a lot of interest.
Yep.
For some reason, this year has been a watershed year. We're going to finish out. We finished out, 2020 with 7 of our top 20 stories, electric vehicles.
Wow.
So
really?
Including Lucid was one of them. We did a Lucid. I think your exclusive drive of the Lucid Air.
That was 21, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
the
Rivian.
I mean, the Rivian, we drove
Trans-America Trail.
700 miles off-road electrically, which is super cool.
And the other manufacturer, Ford F-150 Lightning.
Yeah, that's
the story
huge.
that we had in that massive story. Of course, that's the F-150 is number one selling vehicle in America, so that makes a lot of sense. A lot of interest there. Anyways, that's why we're here. We're talking about the InEVitable. InEVitable isn't only about electric vehicles, but that's really our starting point.
Because that's what we have in front of us now. And look, we've been told that cars are all going to be electric for a while now. Well, it's looking that way, and there's a number of reasons why. We've also been told that cars are going to drive themselves, and that seems to be much, much more difficult than electrifying a vehicle. But I was reading something interesting last night. in 2010, when I started at MotorTrend, the cost per kilowatt hour of battery was $1,200. In 2021, $132. And they're predicting by 2024 it'll get to the magical $100 per kilowatt hour. And when that happens, it's just cheaper. Just all in, it's cheaper to build an electric Corolla than it is to make a gasoline-powered Corolla. Once you hit that $100 per kilowatt hour, and then Farley at Ford was saying they think by 2030 it gets down to $80 per kilowatt hour, which means that cars will be even cheaper to build in the future than they are now, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. But this is this watershed moment, the inevitable, to put it in the terminology of the show. Because it just, at the end of the day, remember, car companies, they want to print cash, right? They want to make money. And when it's more profitable to build an EV than it is to build a gas car, forget about the political pressures, the green pressure, any kind of other consideration. It's just straight capitalism, dollars and cents. You want to have electric vehicles because it's cheaper,
right? And
but more profitable.
Yes, but you touch on a great point, which is this isn't. MotorTrend did some research. We tend to do these studies or surveys every now and then, and we actually polled our potential car consumers. We worked with a third party independent research firm, asking car shoppers what are they interested in. The subset of the questions was on EVs, and one of the key drivers, I think 58% of the people we polled said that climate change, environmental reasons were fueling their decisions to examine an electric vehicle. All that's fine and good, but to what you just said, it actually doesn't matter, because if you don't believe in climate change, if you don't believe it's real, it is real. But if you don't believe it's irrelevant.
It doesn't matter
because companies have already taken a position and governments are taking a position on it. Yeah. So again, all this is more fuel to why we feel like this whole shift that we're going through right now is inevitable, and why we're also really looking forward to talking to our guest, Reggie Watts, who I did a bunch of research on. Yeah. And it turns out he is, I think, a massive, massive car guy, hiding in plain sight on James Corden's show.
Yeah, as the band leader. But he's also not only a car guy, he's like a futurist.
Yes.
Yeah, he's an incredible guy. I can't wait to talk to him. But he's also kind of like where I'm finding myself these days. I don't know if you find yourself this way based on the cars you own, but I got one foot in both worlds. I recently did a thing at the Peterson Museum for this for Omaze, where I was talking about the future of EVs. But I'm looking at the cars I own. I don't own an EV. I like I have an old, like you, I have an old gas guzzling in a sense Porsche. And it's so I want to get his take on what it's like to love cars, but also see the future.
Yes.
And do you find? Let me ask you that though, Ed. Do you find yourself struggling? You have, just so everyone out there knows, you have a 1987 Land Cruiser diesel from Canada, and you have a 87 Porsche 930 turbo. But you're also this big EV advocate. How do you reconcile this within yourself?
Well, yeah. So, look, the wife and I decided that the next car will be an EV. I've told her, and it's going to be her car. We're going to have to get rid of. She has an Audi. All our cars are white. They're all turbocharged. Hers is an A3. Yeah, this is funny. I think the only thing we're missing is an all-wheel drive white car, because we have a. Oh no, sorry. The Land Cruiser is four-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Turbo diesel. The Porsche is obviously rear drive turbo, and her Audi is front drive turbo. So we're missing a mid-engine. I think that's what I ended up with. But yeah, we got a kid now. We need probably a larger SUV. Honestly, the Land Cruiser and the Porsche are the personal cars that don't get driven a whole ton. The Land Cruiser is for surfing. The Porsche is when I have time for it, and then I have a work car.
And also, I was going to say, they're both appreciating assets at this point in time. So
so I don't want the kid
that's a college fund.
Exactly, 100%. College will either be free or $2 million, depending on.
I don't know what they told you when Evan was Ed's son. I probably shouldn't say his name, but when he was born, when my son Richard was born, they told us it'll be $700,000 for a 4-year school.
Yes,
that's what our financial planner told us.
I'm banking that President. This is going to get me in trouble. Sasha Obama will make college free at that point. So when my kid goes to school,
I mean, or they'll become plumbers. It's the smart thing to do,
right? But to your point, yes, EVs are definitely on the personal agenda, because we just have to. we live in an area that's charging's not an issue. It makes a lot of sense. All that.
And you're a homeowner.
And I'm a homeowner,
you
yes.
could charge at your house because people that live in apartments,
Slightly
that's
difficult.
tricky. Yeah. And we'll get to all that on the show because I'm finding myself, I have a little Ford Fiesta ST that blew up the other day. Just like I think the engine's toast and they quoted me like, 60% of the value of the car to fix it. So it's probably not going to happen. And my wife is like, let's get an EV. And for me though, like the one that, what I want is like, I want an electric G-Wagon at a slightly lower price. So maybe like when Rivian does make a smaller two-row type SUV, I want that. But I'm also like, should I buy one last gas car? Should I buy the Jeep 392? And
Or the Cadillac CT.
The CT5V Blackwing. Yeah, I don't know if I can quite afford that, but like, because
392. I mean, come on.
Was it 75? I could kind of swing it, but also that's going to hold its value, right? So you're spending $75,000, but when you go to sell it, that's you're getting at least that back.
It's funny because the older I get, the more buying like a Viper. Or
yes,
or
me too.
First
gen Viper.
Yeah, actually, any of them, like an ACR.
Or fifth gen.
Or a Corvette, a pre-C8 Corvette, like just something big with a huge V8 manual, just to have around when everything becomes quiet and smooth and electrified.
Right. No, and that's a great question. Like, do you want both? And I don't know what I'm going to buy. We have a list of 10. My wife crossed about 4 of them off, so I'm not getting a GT3 for those of you sitting at home wondering. She said no to that, but she did not cross the Jeep off the list, so we might do that. But we also have some EVs on there. But yeah, it's a really strange point in time right now because not only are EVs getting better, but like gasoline powered cars are still getting better.
Oh yeah.
That Jeep 392 in my opinion is the best SUV I've ever driven, unless you think of the Rivian truck as an SUV, even though it's a pickup truck. We know that the eventual R1S will be the same thing. Like, boy, that kind of puts everything on the trailer,
Right.
And it's well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about why the Rivian and the Lucid took home our top prizes.
Well, you can tee up the Lucid Air. You spent a ton of time with them.
Yeah, I had a really interesting experience. So I was the first, to my knowledge, the first non-Lucid employee to drive it. And so I spent a day on Angeles Crest with Peter Rawlinson, who's the CEO and the CTO, the Chief Technical Officer, and
former chief engineer of Tesla Model S.
Former chief engineer of Lotus.
Yes.
And I didn't really realize that at the time, but he showed up wearing racing booties. He was wearing like fireproof shoes. And I was kind of like, all right, dude, that's a little much. And then, we drove up Angeles Crest, a road that I live right near it. I drive it at least once a week. We were flying, and he was keeping up with me. He'd never driven the road before, so the dude can drive. And he was telling me his dream for the Lucid Air was, and pardon the pun, but he wanted an S-Class in terms of luxury, and he wanted a Lotus in terms of handling, and he wanted like the most efficient, high-performance EV possible. Don't think he quite got there in terms of Lotus-like handling, but like, man, if I told you you're driving a GTR, you'd be like, this is like the new Nissan GTR. It's awesome.
Yeah, because it's hard to get Lotus handling in a vehicle that's going to weigh like
it's 5,000 pounds. But then the next day, we met at the Lucid's dealership, or showroom, whatever you call it, in Beverly Hills.
Yep.
We drove, and they didn't plan this. They claimed they didn't plan this, but we drove a 409-mile route up to San Francisco. The EPA range for the Tesla Model S long range, 405. So we beat that right out of the gate. First time anyone besides Lucid ever driven one. I beat that. And then we left San Francisco, drove south to their headquarters near San Jose in Newark, California. Yep. Another 36 miles. I wasn't trying to hypermile. My car still had 30 miles of range showing. His had 72 because he was like accelerating slowly and not being a jackass like I was. And it was mind blowing. You know what I mean?
This was all before they came out with the EPA.
This was before the EPA stuff. So he had told me privately that he was looking at 517 miles of range. EPA gave him 520.
Yeah.
So
that's one. When we talk about our car, truck, SUV of the year awards, we have 6 criteria. Mm-hmm. We have value, safety, efficiency, engineering, design, and then performance of intent and function, how well the vehicle does its job. So Jonny just unpacked a ton of it right there. Obviously, engineering excellence is amazing. Efficiency, I mean, it is the most efficient vehicle that you can buy.
Period.
Today.
In history.
In the history.
Yeah.
Yes.
And by the way, the one I drove was 930 horsepower, and there's
Yeah.
one that's slightly less efficient that makes 1,111 horsepower.
Right.
So
then you talk about, well, how does it do its job as an electric car? I think we just covered off. It does it quite well. It is incredibly fast. I think the fastest version, 0 to 60 in like 2.4 seconds.
We haven't even tested it. No, we've only tested. By the way, we haven't tested a Dream Edition. We've only tested the Grand Touring.
Right. So
the Grand Touring, which is only 800 horsepower, you know what I mean, is 2.4. Like God knows what the like 1,000, the 4 sticks version will do. And they have a 3-motor version coming. I mean, it's just nuts.
Right. So the answers I think are pretty clear. And by the way, it was a big win. The car we had, if we're candid, wasn't perfect.
It was
early.
malfunctioning. Actually,
it had some glitches, mostly to the infotainment system.
Yep.
We couldn't access the awesome.
And to be fair, when
system.
I drove it, the infotainment system was down for the count. I mean, it was not. And they said, yeah, and they look, they were candid. They're like, you know how our radio works, right? I'm like, yeah. They're like, we have a radio. I'm like, okay, okay, I get that.
But it is still it is a historic achievement, and it's a very deserving winner. It is the first time MotorTrend's ever given Car of the Year award to a vehicle for their very first product.
Yeah, I would asterisk that because the Model S, yes, it was their second product, but that Roadster had nothing to do with anything.
That still was technically,
okay. But yeah.
But
same chief engineer.
And I think, look, people can be. I was a little skeptical until I drove it and then went on the same deep dive on the technology that you had up at the headquarters.
We should actually talk about that. So their headquarters is like if Willy Wonka had a car company, It would kind of be like this place.
Right. But what I was saying is, before going there, I was like, Peter Rawlinson, yes, he was chief engineer, but this could be like, is this just Model S version 2.0
with a different skin,
right? Yeah. And at first glance, you might say, well, they made it a little more efficient. It's the same package. It's a 5-seat luxury sedan,
nicer.
But when you see how they did it and what they did, it is absolutely mind blowing. I mean, they'll walk you through and they'll show you like, this is the original Tesla Model S motor package, and it's this big, and it's impressive, and it's gotten that company this far. Oh, and then they'll show you the Model 3 and the Model Y, that motor and inverter package, and it's like,
it's
whatever.
A little smaller, a little less powerful, a little smaller,
more efficient, and they actually were like, credit to them, the being able to produce this and put it into serial production. This is a big deal. It's a phenomenal unit. And then they show you the one in the air, in the air, and it is, sorry, in the Dream, and it is
in the air, in
the air, and it is tiny. I mean, the party trick is they pull up. They can pull it out of a 22-inch standard rollerboard.
Yeah,
a suitcase that you
and
can
by
take on
the
a
way,
plane.
what they're
and that
pulling
includes
out
the
is
motor,
the motor transmission, and the inverter. Yeah, it's crazy
all together, and it's 300% more powerful.
295. Yeah,
than whatever Tesla has.
Yep.
And then you go and they can do the same party trick with the batteries. Everything is more efficient. It's smaller,
the one I tell
compacted.
people about is the headlights. Like they have 5 people with PhDs working on headlights, and your car, if you're listening, you have 2 bulbs that your headlights. They have 9,000 little matrix LEDs that like work like an insect's eyes, and because it's like as thin as I don't know, it's about 2 inches thick or even smaller maybe. It makes the frunk that much bigger.
Right.
So if you look at like a Mercedes S-Class headlight, it's 18 inches deep. This is maybe 2 inches deep, so you get that much more storage space up front, and it uses that much less electricity, making it more efficient, and they're more aerodynamic than any other car.
And
on.
The fact that it's all LEDs and it's basically just the light and then some software. Here's the thing: if you want to get the highest rating according to the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety, the IHS, you need smart headlights. You need headlights that are super bright, cast a lot of clarity on the road ahead, but also will turn around corners.
Right.
Lucid's found a way to do it through software. So they don't actually have a physical motor.
There's no motor.
There's no motor. There's nothing that moves the headlights.
They just turn on lights that point left as you turn the steering wheel left. Because they're miniaturized.
Exactly. It's totally bizarre.
Yeah, it's totally cool. And then the Rivian we should talk about.
Yes.
We obviously did this stunt, for lack of a much more elegant term, where we drove 7,700 miles across America on the Transamerica Trail, all electric, charging them up every night.
All off-road or
all
mostly,
off-road,
almost
yeah.
all off-road.
Yeah, basically all off-road. That vehicle, it's not as efficient, but it's revolutionary.
4 motors.
Yeah.
First electric vehicle out there on the road that has a motor at each wheel.
Yeah, and that was, to me, was game-changing. And if I can quote Frank Marcus here, he's our technical director at MotorTrend, he said it best, and you guys can go watch this video.
Yes.
He said that what you realize after off-roading in the Rivian is that, having low gears, a transfer case, and all that stuff, it's a Band-Aid on a terrible powertrain. Internal combustion is horrible for off-road because what you want is not to go that quickly, and you want massive torque. Well, guess what? EVs, as we know, they make their peak torque before they even start spinning. So in a really powerful, we brought the Ram TRX along as a support vehicle, and in that it makes a ton of torque, but you got to goose the motor. So suddenly you're flooring it, then slamming on the brake, then flooring it to get over a rock, then slamming on the brake. The Rivian just elegantly glided over these obstacles. And I always say, Sean Holman, who's our four-wheel expert at the company, let's just say, and I was texting him because he drove the Wave after me. I'm like, dude, this is going to blow your mind. You're not going to believe this. And he was so skeptical. Even Sean was like, yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's as a clean sheet design, you really can't do better in terms of for the mission at hand of off-roading.
Yeah.
Battery, some software, a motor at each wheel.
Really smart suspension.
Really smart, yes.
Yeah. Air suspension with diagonally linked dampers, hydraulic dampers.
From McLaren.
Same supplier as McLaren. But yeah, super cool. But what I loved was, because the Wave I was on, we started in Georgia, and Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, deep, deep south. And people would see it, and it's a different looking truck, to put it politely. It's it's kind of like this weird French anime looking thing. People walk up, what is it? We talk to them, and first of all, they all kind of like the size because everyone in the South has a monster pickup truck, and they're kind of bummed out about it because they're just enormous. And then they're looking, they're thinking, how's the range? And then you go blah blah blah. Also, 835 horsepower. Your truck your Raptor makes 410 or whatever it makes, 450. This is 835, and they're just like, what? And you could see their minds changing in front of you. Wow, that's cool. You know?
Yep.
And then you pull the camp stove, the kitchen out of the side.
The $5,000 optional induction range with a sink.
Powered sink. You can power off your dirty dishes. It's brilliant.
Yeah. But that isn't why we picked our truck of the year. We invited. Oh boy, it was actually a fairly large field this year.
Yeah, Maverick was right there. We had the Hummer. We had the new Toyota.
We had Nissan. We had
Nissan.
We had the Nissan Frontier. We had Ranger, Tremor, a bunch of traditional.
We
had Raptor. We had, a bunch of traditional gasoline-powered pickup trucks, along with the only other EV was the Hummer EV truck. And it really I don't think it was close, right? Blew everybody away.
I think the Maverick had a good showing.
And
remember, there's that hybrid Maverick, 42 miles a gallon, and
yes.
it's really a good vehicle, so hats off to Ford. But yeah, the Rivian is just next level thing. Here's how good it is. Tesla just announced if they ever make it, the Cybertruck is going to be 4 motors, because I'm sure they got one of the first ones. And in fact, I remember Rivian telling me, they're like, we know Tesla bought one because we know where they're going. And they're like, oh man, this is game changing.
Yep.
You got to have those 4 motors.
And I'll tell you, the one thing I was very interested in is that Rivian is focusing so much on the off-road performance of this truck. And I'm like, from what I understand about the truck market, and talking to a lot of people, a lot of people don't go off-road. And it is so good on-road.
It's so good on-road.
And it's you guys, they are, what do they call them, air haulers?
Yeah.
A lot of truck owners never put anything in the bed, never tow anything with it, never take it off-road. Or if it's off-road, it's on a fire road.
It's a lifestyle vehicle.
Yes.
And I will say, the other amazing thing to me about that truck was that, there's an economy mode, and what that one does is actually declutches the rear motors. So you're just in a front-wheel drive vehicle, still 410 horsepower, by the way, in front-wheel drive only. And it's fine to drive.
Sure.
It was, a lot of times if you put a gasoline-powered car in an eco mode, it's just, there's no throttle response. This was killer,
Right.
So they really clever, savvy engineering on again, they didn't focus on efficiency. They're not building their own battery packs. They're not, spinning their own motors up the way Lucid is. But I think they were innovative in a different way.
Right.
They didn't make the Model S Part 2. They made something the world had never seen before.
Right.
And I think part of the duty of awarding an Of the Year award is like recognizing that.
Yep. A high water. We try to award a high water mark for the industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth noting for those who might be sort of not familiar with it. It is not every car under the sun every year that we look at. So I'm sorry your Corvette didn't win. Corvette isn't new this year. New. Yeah, right. It is only the vehicle in their launch year, their very first model
or
year.
if they've been significantly updated. Yep. We tend to, that means like a new powertrain, new transmission and engine,
right?
Something like that. So yeah. But yeah, it was. I think we did well. And again, Genesis. I wish we would have known a little bit about this, but like they have a GV70,
and we can give them a shout out because their vehicle, honestly, was probably the biggest win. It is the toughest segment in terms of overall number of competitors. SUV was huge.
SUVs have taken over the world.
Right. Yeah. So there was
it's a dominant species.
In our 2022 SUV of the Year competition, there were many more competitors in either car or truck. And honestly, once people got into that vehicle and drove it, it was like, this is it. This is why are we doing this? Like, this one is so much better.
And now you can have it as an EV, which is a great segue into our guest, who I just got the sign that he showed up. So we're going to talk to Mr. Reggie Watts.
Yes.
I'm super excited about this, and I'm super excited about the InEVitable show.
Me too. Can't wait to chat with him, and hope you guys all enjoy our interview with Reggie.
Hi, Reggie. Very exciting to have you here.
Thanks.
Before we get started, Ed has actually prepared a dossier on you.
Ooh.
This is like
nice.
opposition research. But I want to start by saying that he's got a 1-year-old, so he has no idea what I'm about to say. I have a 4-year-old. You're on Storybots.
Yes.
You did the DNA episode.
Yes,
I've seen that 7,000 times.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I know. It's funny now, just starting to hear from all my friends that have kids. They're like, "Oh, you're on Story." It's kind of cool.
It's the best. It's the best kids show. It's incredible.
Well, how about for the people who don't know what it is?
It's like an educational show, but it's actually like really well done. Like really, actually good music.
Yeah.
And you talk about you did the DNA episode where the bots ask why do people look different?
Yes,
yes. The title of it,
which is such a great. I mean, what a great thing for kids to learn about.
Yeah.
I've just popped in for my one bit, but everybody that runs the show, they're all like kind of music nerds. And they love they have really good taste in music, and they just wanted, they had kids and they had like an idea to make a really cool show.
Yeah.
That was based off of their idea of what a kid show should be, which I think is Storybots, at least from all my Gen X friends, are all just like, it's a dope show, and I'm like, okay, good.
It's a show you could actually watch. Like Snoop Dogg's on it. I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
It's like all these people you grew up with, and now they're doing this good kid show. And again, the music's actually decent. Where most kid show music's like this horrible, never-ending earworm of death.
Yeah. Glockenspiel City.
I love that. That's how we're starting this interview.
You have to.
We were. I was just like when they said Reggie's going to be a guest, I was like, I don't really watch The Late Show. I'm kind of familiar.
Who does?
Oh boy.
Well, this is me.
No. I don't watch it.
Wow.
I don't watch it. I mean, I'm there on tapes, but I don't watch
exactly.
it.
Yeah, but I pass out on the couch every night at 9:25. And a kid wakes me up. But we do watch on the weekends. We watch TV, and Storybots he's obsessed with. And
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, we are here with Reggie Watts, who is on The Late Show with James Corden.
Yeah, The Late Show.
The Late Show. Actor, comedian, musician.
Beatboxer.
Storybots, VO, great hair.
Does look like Jerry Seinfeld.
Yes,
does look like...
Hi, guys. This is my Jerry Seinfeld impression. Hello.
That's pretty good.
Very good.
I'm on a podcast with him, so I
really?
Okay. Yeah.
This is what he sounds like. That's not at all. Not even close.
It's close. He's more like
Yeah,
he
does that. I know.
I can't do it.
It's impossible.
I'm being conscious of it.
I really can't, but I've gotten that before. Yes.
So, why are you here with us? Is that you're also a huge, and I'm going to say huge because I did a lot of research, and I think you're a huge.
Look at this is all you.
You're a huge car guy.
Yes,
you're a huge car fan, and
Yes.
you're kind of a stealth car fan. I feel like I kind of dug through your Instagram,
Yes.
And I noticed that you post a lot of random pictures of cars without saying anything about it. You just kind of put it out there, and it's a lot. Some of it's sort of Detroit iron, but there's some foreign cars in there.
Yeah.
They're all kind of vintage. And then you do a lot from your own car, from your personal car.
Yeah.
And I've read some interviews where you've talked about vehicles you've been in. You had a famous moment with Jack Black, apparently. In a Tesla.
Oh, yes. That's right. Yes.
So this is,
true.
and then we heard from the fine folks at PodcastOne that you're also a big Porsche guy, and we're trying to figure this out. You currently own a Taycan
Yes.
Turbo S.
Turbo S, yeah, and a 911 C4S 992.
Okay, great.
C4S.
Yeah.
Okay. They had it down as a Turbo S and
Well,
a Turbo S.
I have a Turbo S on the way. It should be here in a few months.
Okay.
And now you want to ask him why you didn't get a GT3.
I'm not going to say anything about that.
No, I actually ordered one. I had an allocation for a GT3 Touring.
Oh, you got to get the wing. Anyway, that's one.
Yeah, I thought the Touring was stealth. It's like I'm kind of like the guy that
stealth.
it's like I have friends that are like car people, and I don't like a bright look at me sports car because it's like, do you want more sports car on your already sports car? So for me, it's the opposite. I like it being subdued, but like people kind of do a slow double take, and they're like, "What is it? Oh, that's awesome!" Instead of like, "Whoa,"
So is that why you got? And is it? Did you get chalk? What paint did you get in your
For
car?
the Taycan, I got a coffee beige.
That's what it was. I was looking at the picture. I was like, is it chalk or is it
Nice.
coffee beige?
I wasn't
Nice.
sure about it because like when you look at those color palettes online,
Yes.
it's hard to tell really.
You got to see a car in sunlight.
Oh,
That's
my
the real
God.
trick. Sunlight's the only way to look at a car. Everything else is like you don't really see the color.
Not at all. Not even close. This was like the most obscure. Like I couldn't figure it out at all. And I like chalk. Chalk was great, but chalk's also an older color.
Yep.
And so I was saying it to a bunch of my friends, like, what would you think, beige or whatever? And usually I was a white car guy, especially with Tesla when I used to have Teslas. But so I got the beige, and it gets so much attention.
Hang on, pause for a second. What does white car guy mean? Because to me, so 39%
I'm a white car.
I know.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Yeah.
We're all Porsche owners here. We'll get to that in a minute. But BASF told me 39% of new cars globally are white. So to me, it's Anyways, why? What's attractive about white cars?
Well, for me in California, you got smog, you get that air pollution, and you got heat. And so for me, it's heat rejection,
Right.
And keep the car cooler, better for the paint, all that stuff. And also, it's an electric car, so you want to keep it cool, anyways. And then on top of that, it stays clean. It looks clean.
Yes, that's actually. I'm lazy,
Okay.
and white cars hide the dirt.
I'm taking notes about the
Oh,
heat
definitely.
thing.
Black
Go
cars
ahead.
are the worst.
Oh yeah, there's water spots, dust, everything.
Doesn't matter.
Every other color is relatively cool, but
Yeah.
All right, now, so you own a very sporty gasoline-powered car and a very sporty electric car.
Yes.
How do you feel about both? How do you feel about either? How do they compare? How do they contrast?
Well, I mean, I had a Tesla. I think the first car I had here in LA was a Tesla P85, and then got a P100 later. But it's like I wanted. Well, Porsche was a brand that I'd always, growing up in the '80s. You guys would know about this. This is way before your time. But in the '80s,
I think he's older than you.
No. We are all within 5 years. Age of
I think
difference.
so. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
fair enough.
Gen X forever, man.
That's right.
The
Ed's
only
younger
gen
than me,
that
right?
matters.
Yeah.
No, but yeah. So like I guess I was interested in Porsche, but in the '80s it was always represented as like the asshole in a teen comedy. Like always drove a Porsche. So Porsche had this kind of like douchebag kind of vibe to it that I held on through all the way through the 90s. And then everyone was always like, Porsche, there's no substitution. Porsche, it's a driver's car. I was like, could you guys shut up about driver's car? What does that even mean? Right. And then I drove I ordered a Porsche because I got a gig and I was interested in the 992 because of the technology. Like I was really going deep on like, oh, what do they do for design? This is a whole new generation, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I really want to dig it. And one of my friends has a Cayman. One of the guys, one of the producers at the show. So got it, and I purposefully did not drive a Porsche until I got that 911. Then I got it, and it just blew me away. I understood immediately. I was like, oh, I can feel the texture of the road through the wheel. Which was insane to even think about, and every move I made, it just felt like I was the car. And then I got it. I was like, oh, this is cyborg. This is like,
and this is your Carrera 4S.
that's the Carrera, the C4S. So that was my first Porsche.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're relatively new to the brand.
I'm pretty new to the brand. Like I've had that one
gotcha.
for, let's say, 2 years, and then of course the Taycan came around, and I just told myself, if I get a good gig, if I get a sweet gig, I'll get a Taycan Turbo S, because I don't want to do the lower end. I got the C4S because I was like, oh, well, that's because the way I spec'd it almost is the price of a Turbo S anyways. But,
right. Well, just wait till you spec your Turbo S. It'll.
Oh my God! Well, it's
Right.
it's done. It's on its way.
Okay,
but
okay.
but I was like, oh, I'll do the C4S because everyone was like, no, it's a great car, and most people are like, it's more car than you need anyways. The
Definitely.
C4S.
Yeah, but you need the turbo. I
Well,
would just
so-
say, like, don't listen to anyone.
Yeah, I know.
But let's pause here for a second
Yeah.
because so you previously, when you first came to LA, you had a 2015 P85 Tesla Model S P85.
That's correct.
Okay, and then you subsequently moved on to 100.
Yeah.
Any other EVs of note or vehicles of note prior to that? You grew up in Montana.
I had a TTRS
Okay.
Oh, nice.
before that. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I had the TTRS in conjunction with the. So I always had a gas car and an electric car.
Okay.
But my electric car is the primary driver.
Right,
Okay.
right. TTRS, but for those listening, that's a cool 5-cylinder turbocharged Audi.
Yeah.
Fun car. I always call it like my first supercar.
Yeah,
Little
exactly. That's
baby
kind of what it
supercar.
was for me too. Yeah.
Right.
It was a baby,
Okay.
all right.
So then, all right. So we talked through the 992. Now, tell us, because I assume you enjoyed your time with Tesla. You really like the Model S. What's the difference moving
good
into Porsche and then into Taycan in particular?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love the S because I love the autopilot. I was probably, one of the idiots that used it 70% of the time, even back then. I just loved it. I love that idea of being on the road and being able to not be focused constantly, like on a bumper-to-bumper stop-and-go Beverly Boulevard drive from work or whatever.
Yep.
Aside from stoplights, which it did not recognize, it held the road really well. So I really enjoyed that. So then going to the Taycan, it doesn't have that. It has InEVitable. I got InEVitable. It does some steering, but it's mostly just keep your hands on the wheel just to relax the drive. But I will say the feeling between both of those cars, one, the Tesla feels like a souped up golf cart. Like it goes really fast, and but it doesn't. There's no feeling to it. There's no connection to the road really. It's just it's more like it feels digital, like you're a video game character in the real world. And the Taycan feels like it's like a mountain goat. It feels planted to the ground. Again, you get that road tactility, that feeling through the wheels all the way through the steering wheel. Same steering wheel as the 992, which is to me the perfect size steering wheel.
They were smart to do that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And everything and it just feels like a precision. It's like a scalpel, as opposed. And I know that the Plaid or whatever is ridiculous, and but it's still not a driver's car. The Plaid to me is not really a driver's car. They're catching up. They're like, oh, what else do drivers like? Oh, I guess we'll add these carbon ceramics. Oh, what else do drivers like? They're thinking that way.
Right.
Reverse engineered almost.
Yes, exactly. It's reverse engineered. Whereas Porsche's just like, listen, our infotainment system will be very confusing and it won't be as fast, and but the most important part, the driving. As a Porsche, the driving. And so when I get into the Porsche, also it turns heads. Not that I'm looking for that in a car. I wasn't expecting it, but people look at my car all the time, and I think if you
It's a gorgeous design.
It's beautiful.
So Misha Burkhardt, who's now the chief of design for Lamborghini, when he was at Porsche, he did the Mission E, and that it was such a successful show car that launched him to Lamborghini.
Is it beautiful? I don't know.
Which one?
The Taycan.
I think it is the way I have it. The way I have it set up.
The show car was like, wow. The Taycan is very good. The new, have you seen the GTS? It came out as a wagon, so it's called the Taycan
the
GTS
face of
Sport
still.
Turismo.
It leaves me a little flat.
The gecko look. Well, I got the blue. So I got the blue. What do they call it? I forgot what it is. Whatever that option is. It's
the headlights.
It's a blue. Yeah, it's a blue tinted like a frost, whatever color blue, with the beige. Plus,
nice.
Plus, I got like 20s on all the windows with the black border. I think it looks pretty lethal, but I think also beige really does it. Other colors of the Taycan for me, like it's okay. I mean, yeah, but of course, I don't. I would love to buy a Mission R, but
It looks like
Well,
like from Murakami, the Japanese animator. It looks like one of the.
Oh, yeah.
It looks yes. It looks
I know
like
what you're talking about.
because it has that kind of sad.
the tear,
Yes,
the
tear eye.
It's like a
kind of
Gundam thing too,
Yes.
because it's like
Okay.
agreed. Well, I like it.
I mean,
think it's
I'll
good.
just say the front isn't the greatest. I think it's good, but the side profile is just gorgeous.
Because it's got
And
that
the
911
end.
rear. It's got the
Yeah.
911 taper on the rear
But
windows.
I'm telling you, man, the new wagon, the Sport Turismo Taycan GTS, is just in red. It's like knockout.
I'll have
knockout.
to. I'll have to see it because
Slower than your car.
I'm not. Yeah, it's like I'm such a sedan guy. Like I think the
nice.
ultimate intersection of everything that you need in a car is a sedan.
Ooh, I wish more people thought like that.
I really do because like people, and
I
I'm
agree.
I'm an anti SUV guy. I don't like. I think SUVs look like baby carriages. No offense.
No,
they
no.
They look like fat sneakers or baby carriages. And some German makers actually managed to like get the proportions correct. You know, like
It's
a
tough.
BMW.
It's tough though.
Audi.
SUVs look like SUVs.
Yeah, they just
Two
look like
bikes.
yeah.
Fundamentally.
And, I mean the Porsche, the Cayenne is like obviously gorgeous. The GTS.
Well, I wouldn't say obviously. But that's your
Well,
opinion. Go ahead.
well, I'm saying like of all the SUVs out there, it looks the most like capable, and I hate the Urus. I think the Urus looks like a
Urus,
pile of
I think the
garbage.
Urus is the best looking SUV by.
You guys
Oh,
gotta
no,
fight.
I
This is
hate
great.
it.
Either the G-Wagon or the Urus.
It looks like an Autobot.
Which is great.
I don't know.
I think that's
Or it looks like
great.
the thigh section of Voltron.
Yeah, totally. It's like there's like where does this click into? I don't know.
Well,
That's just me.
Before we
That's
fight
just
much
me. We're
more,
gonna fight.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What is there anything you miss going from Tesla
Yes.
to Porsche? Is there anything that
Like
Tesla
range?
did, like range, for instance, or the supercharger network?
Sure.
Just to put a couple ideas
I get
in
it.
your head. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. No, range is terrible. I mean, it's like I get 220. I get 220 on a full charge.
And it's rated at 192, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. I mean, but that's
It's
Porsche.
terrible,
That's
actually.
Porsche,
Yeah,
though, right?
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
well, it gets 190, and they're like, well, it goes 220. It's like, well, it goes 0 to 60 in 2.6. It does 2.2. That's Porsche.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the range, yeah, is definitely. But I don't really care about it. I'm not really.
Interesting.
I mean, I want to, but it's so fun to drive. I just don't care.
Makes
it's like,
up for it.
I'm because I'm driving mostly in the city. I'm definitely more on edge driving at long distance.
Right.
So there's that. But I will say that that's not as big of a deal breaker. I mean, I seriously considered getting a Lucid, but just because that 520 range is insane.
Yes.
And it's got kind of equal performance stats. I don't know what the driving feel is like. But anyways, so I did notice that, and I think you were saying like differences between.
Yeah, just like Tesla would have like the fart noises.
Yeah, now-
Porsche
now-
doesn't have fart noises.
Here's where like I was a big Tesla guy for a while, but as soon as he started doing that stuff, and then also just I don't know, I'm getting Elon tired out. I just think like
yeah.
he gets
Elon fatigue.
a lot of attention, but really it's his engineers and designers that should get all the praise, and you just don't hear about them. But and then like the fart noise and all that stuff, I'm just like, yeah, I get it. You can do it. But I think that Porsche, what the Taycan represents is a car that is absolutely Porsche. They nailed that. It feels like a Porsche, which is like a huge deal. I mean, creating your first electric car and still preserving the driving dynamics. Yeah, it's heavy. I can feel it, on certain dips.
But
and
it's
things
no more.
like that.
It's not any heavier than a Tesla.
No,
Same weight.
No, yes, relatively same. But I will say that they succeeded in creating a perfect intersection of performance. Their version of efficiency is they still call it an efficient car, even though the range is there. Some people will be like, it doesn't have good range. It's like efficiency is about how it handles all the power and how it delivers the power. To me, that's a huge part of efficiency when I hear efficiency. So I think it's a pretty efficient car, 800-volt architecture, cool. Lucid's going 900 or whatever, which also has advantages. But supposedly faster charger, but according to independent, charging people, the Tesla still charge faster technically.
I
That's such a can of worms argument.
But it's also consistently because they have the supercharging network. The
true.
This is the question I want because
real quick though, for those listening, Lucid's the king of fast charging right now.
Right.
Oh, yeah, because voltage just means the size of your pipe essentially, and 900 volts is bigger.
1,000
than
is the
800.
next frontier. Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
But
because Jonny mentioned it at the outset, so we've established the Porsche. You love the driving experience it delivers. It's better than the Tesla in that regard. Range obviously suffers, but what's your experience been charging the Taycan. Have you done a lot of fast charging? Is it like helpful, or are you just like, meh?
I don't really. I charge at home.
Oh, right.
I mean, I charge at night.
So I remember. So we've been really involved with Tesla since the beginning. We MotorTrend gave it Car of the Year when it was brand new.
2013.
Yes,
I'll never. And at the time, what was really revolutionary about the Tesla was it was like 250 miles of range. It was like shocking back in 2013. Like what?
Yeah.
And I remember this one Tesla engineer we talked to. I said, are you, because they monitor, they can monitor everything you do.
Yes.
And they said, yeah. So the first week if someone owns a Tesla, they charge everywhere they go. They just go to chargers. They drive 2 chargers.
That's
and
funny.
then the second week they have it, they just plug in every night. And then the third week, they plug it in when it's empty.
Exactly.
And is that kind of what you're experiencing with the...
Yeah, with the Taycan's funny because like the way I drive, it's just like I have 220 miles, and then by the end of the day, it's at 180, and then so I have to drive that. I just like driving what I call proactively efficient.
Okay.
So,
define that. What is that?
Well, it's like with an electric car. Also, you were talking about the difference between the gas car and the electric car. Gas car gives you that visceral, like that beautiful feel, especially in a Porsche. The sound of the flat six is just unmistakable, and it actually weirdly gives you energy when you hear it. It's just like more like like when I do a nice hard acceleration, you feel that everything just going into place and just working orchestrally. It's like that's a great feeling, and so it has that, but an EV is that instant torque. It's like it's a precision instrument. So if I need to make a gap, I know I can.
Right.
It's like I just know I can do it, and I also know I have a lot more space than I think. Or when traffic's oncoming and I have to go across an intersection, I know I'll clear that gap, even though other people will be like, "There's no way I'm going to make," It's like I just cruise through it, and then I look in my rearview mirror. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, then the cars pass. And I'm like, I have so much room.
It's funny how once you get used to that, it's really hard to go back to not having instantaneous throttle response. It is weird.
Well, that's why I wanted the Turbo S. That's what conned me into my cycle. I was like, well, because I'm obsessed with like knowing why is something the best.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, if in the future, if I could get a Rimac Nevera, I would do that.
So this is wild. I mean, this is great because why are you even doing the job you do? You spend an inordinate amount of time thinking about this. Like, this is so consistent. I read a couple articles on you. One of them is from vulture.com where they go through every question you've ever asked on James Corden's show. Yes. And I was like, I'm going to read a couple of these.
Yeah,
I read them all the way through, and at least for like the first couple of years, like every fourth question was about cars. You asked some you asked major celebrities some really insane questions about cars, including what you were just talking about, like finding a gap in traffic. I think you asked that of like James Vanderbeek or somebody.
Oh, interesting.
I
remember something like that.
What is going on with this guy? In fact, I wanted to ask you, James Vanderbeek, episode 10, when you're driving a car, are you anticipating the behavior of the people based on the angles of the cars that you see in traffic, or are you simply enjoying the ride?
Oh, sick. Oh, my God.
And in addition to cars, EV cars, you seem to spend a lot of time thinking about the future. About consciousness, about artificial intelligence. This is why you're the perfect guest for the show. That's all about what we're talking about with the inevitable, the coming wave of electrification,
and also cars without steering wheels.
Let's go a step beyond EVs. Where do you think this is going?
I mean, it's interesting. The future is interesting. It's like the combination of eVTOL and level 5 autonomy it's actually going to be kind of a weird bleeded intersection. But I think first we got to figure out what is the primary power source or the fuel source. Like, is it going to be direct combustion hydrogen? Is it going to be hydrogen fuel stacks? Is it going to be hybrid, battery hydrogen? Is it going to not be hydrogen at all? Is it going to be iron oxide batteries? Are we going to figure out chemistries that don't use cobalt and all of the gross, blood diamond style?
Yes, they're already figuring that out. But
elements, yes. And everyone's like, they're there. Is it solid state batteries? Now we've got problems with dendrites. So is that ever going to catch on? Right. Or is it going to be Tesla's, idea for their new bigger batteries? So we need to kind of figure out what that is. Do the chemistries change enough to create more energy density, less weight? Because that's going to be a huge thing for flying machines. I was going to say flying devices. Does that count?
I like airplanes, but I like flying machines.
Flying devices. But so I think once we figure whatever that is, there'll be a universal power source. I hope it's some form of hydrogen. I like the idea of hydrogen. I think it's very.
Right.
I know it's tough to make, and it's tough to make it green. But if someone cracks that, I think it's all over. Plus Porsche's investment into e-fuels, which I think is great, or at least carbon neutral,
Right.
Offset, whatever, carbon capture, making fuel. I think that's going to be determined first. Then that obviously influences the design of what we have. Then autonomy is an interesting thing, vehicles being able to talk to one another in order to organize efficiency. Because what's cheaper, creating high-speed rails or getting autonomy to actually unify so that freeway driving is efficient? But then again, I love driving. So I don't know.
No, that becomes for me. That's the weird thing is like. You hear people talk about this. Like cars will want to not have steering wheels, and I'm like, well, what's the point of my life at that point? I don't really know how to do anything else. I'll probably be either, as I was saying, dead or retired by then. But that's an interesting thought. Like, what does a car without a steering wheel do, and do we want it? That's the other thing. Like,
I don't know.
Just because it's coming, do we want it?
I know.
And as humans, we've never been able to really say no to a technology.
It's true.
We have a hard time with that.
It's just like the question you asked in episode 4 to Claire Danes. Do you believe artificial intelligence will be the beginning or end of human civilization? Do you believe autonomous cars will be the beginning or end of human civilization?
I mean, I don't. The funny thing is like time and space, right? Those are the things that we're constantly managing. Like we're like, well, now since the pandemic, time and space have entered a new intersection with like a telepresence of sorts.
Right.
Although resolution telepresence.
Right.
But if I may say, you can beep that out, so I apologize.
I think we can say that.
Okay, good. I think autonomy I think it's really great because, obviously when we drive, we see all the different driving styles. Because I think of it, every car that's on the road is a philosophy. Essentially,
right.
Like every person driving it, well, the car itself plus the driver, it's like, where did they come from? Maybe they grew up in Bogota, so they drive like this, or maybe they grew up in Taiwan, and they drive like this, or they grew up in Bronx, whatever. You get all these different driving styles on the road, and they're all competing for dominance, even though there's just supposed to be regular traffic rules that we all know about, but no one really does.
Right. And
then you kind of see what it averages out to. So traffic can be, it's so annoying. Often at times, like you'll see like a lane will be stopped, and I'm like, I know it's something dumb. I just know whatever it is.
It's always dumb. It's always dumb.
And it's just like the cops pulled over somebody, just a routine traffic stop, and everyone's like, whoa, what's going on? And I'm one of those people that like, I'm not looking at it. I'm driving, I'm maintaining the speed, and I'm going to, it's what I like to call erasing problems. Like if I accelerate to get out of the way of something, I'm like, I'm just going to get beyond this stupidity.
But you're not going to rear end the person who is rubbernecking?
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm constantly like, oh, what's the angle? What's the approach? How do I, navigate this? But I will say that like autonomy, I think, will be useful in that it will kind of unify the experience of travel potentially. But I don't know how I feel. It's a weird thing. It's like when I had a Tesla, and I was like one of the few people that had a Tesla, or at least their fast Tesla. And I was like, there's nothing faster on the road than this car. I had that, but then eventually everybody. I kept thinking like, well, a lot of people are going to have EVs in the future. Yep. So everyone. But then what I've noticed, I've seen other Taycan drivers and other, I've even seen a couple Tesla Plaids. And they're still driving really tentatively. So I'm like, I guess it doesn't really matter. Just because you have it doesn't mean someone's going to understand what they have.
I think Plaid is so ridiculously fast. When I had it, turn around and return after 30 minutes. I was like, I'm going to kill somebody. I'm driving so fast, and nobody expects that speed. It's like when the first Nissan GTR came out, and I drove it on the road, and I let colleagues at work drive, and just be mindful that people they see you, and then you blink your eye, and then you're on them. People react differently. They're not tuned to reacting to a vehicle that moves this quickly. It's just like that Plaid, man. Like,
yeah, and the terrible brakes.
Yes.
It's like massive speed, terrible brakes.
There are quicker cars, but they tend to have really good brakes.
I will say as a quick aside, the Taycan, it stops. I mean, it doesn't stop as soon as a 911. But it stops.
17.3-inch rotors.
Yeah,
they're good.
6 in the front, 4 in the back.
Yeah, big boat anchors. Those work out really, really well.
Yeah, but I mean, to your point, I mean, it's a weird thing. It's like if you're a driver and you're someone who loves to drive and you're thinking courteously but also assertively, which is what I like to do. I try to let people. If someone wants to get in, I let them get in. Someone wants to move into my lane, but I have space in front of me, I'll accelerate so that they have a gap to pull into. I'm always thinking
That's
like
good.
that.
That's the way you should do it. Because my thing with autonomy, what I want is I want a Porsche GT3 that when I've had a few drinks can then drive me home. And I don't have to worry about it. No, that's what I want.
That's
all
you.
I want.
I'm 100%.
But I want the full, like, I'm going to drive it when I want it. But like you said, like when you're sitting in traffic on Beverly, there's like, let the car do it. Humans shouldn't do that. Humans are bad at that.
No, I don't need to be like, this is a driver's car. I'm a driver. I'm going to drive in this.
2 miles an hour. Right.
Like, I agree with you 100%. My dream is someday like a Mission R type vehicle or whatever they're going to replace the Cayman or whatever, or 911. Holy crap, are they going to go electric? They'll go hybrid first. But whatever it is, I would love. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But Porsche, that's why they're doing the e-fuels thing. But I will say, with an actual round and actual steering wheel, a round steering wheel, which is the best steering wheel. I think
he's not a yoke fan apparently.
I don't. I mean, I'll have to drive with a yoke. I drive 9.3. I mean, I always have. I love it, but that wheel, it's way more versatile. You've got way more points.
You don't like
of
a squared off DTM like style or the ovoid?
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
I mean,
but you're saying a full hoop.
I want a hoop. I want the top part of the hoop, and I get it. I get the aesthetic of like, oh, it's clean. It's like, and if I had like, let's say, a Lucid or something like a luxury sedan that just was loaded, a yoke I wouldn't mind, especially if it had that variable ratio steering, plus rear wheel steer like the EQS has. That's insane, the amount of degrees that you get there.
No,
but
it's pretty good. 10 degrees, yeah.
10 degrees is awesome.
It is pretty good.
It's like, I've got a tiny car. It's like, it's not a tiny car. It's like, no,
it's like
it
a
is.
Hummer. It's
The Hummer. I mean, I'm impressed with that too. But
Hummer's cool.
If I had a car like that, but if I'm talking about a performance vehicle, like one that I want to drive and I really want to drive it, a round wheel just makes more sense to me because I can grab the top. I mean, we all know what we can do with a round wheel, but I'm just like, boy, let me tell you, once I get a round wheel, no one's stopping me.
Right.
No, but it's just like,
well, they fixed the problem that wasn't, it wasn't broken. Nobody asked for a yoke except Michael Knight.
Yeah. Totally.
So,
I mean, I would look. I drove a Bentley race car, a Pikes Peak race car.
Oh yeah.
That was using Porsche's e-fuel, which was actually really cool.
Oh, sick!
Yeah,
I didn't
making
know that.
850 horsepower is pretty good. But it had, it was a racing yoke,
right?
And
for racing,
track,
I get it.
Awesome. Yeah,
Totally.
Yeah,
when the lock to lock is like that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Actually, I drove the Pagani Huayra R, which is.
Oh my gosh.
Let me tell you. But anyways, that was a little yoke. That was very good too.
Yeah. Sorry, we're going. It's like steering wheels. They matter.
Yeah.
Every tool for the right job or whatever. But I would say, like, yes, I agree with you. Like autonomy in a performance sports car. I mean, man, that would be the dream because now Porsche offers the auto park now, which is like closer. I don't know how good it is, but
it's probably not. I can park myself. Like I said, I want I've gone out. I've had a wonderful meal. I've had a couple of bottles of wine or whatever we've done.
Yes,
and I want to get home without being a criminal.
Yes,
and I don't want to leave. And I don't want to leave my car at the valet.
Right.
I will say there have been a few times when I had my Tesla. And I went a couple times. There were like some pot, cannabis, whatever events, and I ate a thing that I had no idea. Yeah, totally legal in California, guys. Don't freak out, and 6 other states, as far as I know. But even my home state, Montana, it's legal. But I got done and I was like, I'm still pretty high, but I really want to go home, and it helped. I mean, I was like extra attentive. I was going the speed limit, everything I said, but I wanted to make extra sure that I was safe, and that it's just like is a nice comforting thing. And if it were a fully approved, technology that you could use, I mean, man, think about how many lives it would save, how much stress it would lower.
Totally.
So I like your idea. I like both. I like being able to drive or not drive.
That's the trick. Yeah, I think I don't know if that's what the future is going to be, but boy, I hope so.
I don't know. I'm excited. Well, here's the thing. Tesla, has done what they've done, and I'm glad that the Rimac is faster because I'm tired of Tesla getting all the things. Like, yeah, you got sick engineers, you got your carbon wrapped, rotor wires, whatever. You get that extra energy density, and I get it. You guys are genius and all that stuff, but it's not a car built for people that love cars, and they're going back to try to make it a car that and everyone's impressed. All the drag time guys or whatever, they're like, oh my god, this car. But at the same time, it's kind of like it's no fun. It's like it is. It's a missile, and it's great, and it's we'll see how it does on the Nordschleife, but again when they come back at it, but I'm excited for Porsche to develop their next weapon. I'm excited for Bugatti Rimac to come out with their next weapon.
That's going to be interesting. And that's going to be, just so you know, that's going to be hybrid, right? They're going to so for a Bugatti owner, like an EV is like they don't care. But 16-cylinder, where suddenly you go from 1,500 to 2,500 horsepower when you have two EV motors on the front wheels.
Yes,
that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think that's going to be good. And Porsche to me is I think it's the greatest performance car company. Obviously, I love all of them. But what I love about Porsche is that it's the perfect intersection of like you spend $250,000 on a Turbo S. Mm-hmm. Technically, right conditions, 2.2, easy launch control, all that stuff. You got that 205 top speed. Handling dynamics, amazing, great. It's not a GT3. It's not a track. It's not a track monster. But you can take it on a track, and it does. It's pretty close.
Very well, especially if you upgrade the tires. It does very well.
It's pretty close, Yeah. But then, like, what's the next car that gets those performance numbers? You're looking at McLaren or something. So you're at 600. So it's a bargain.
And you have. I mean, not quite that super usable, but it's a 4-seater. Like that's the thing that blows people's. Like if you need to pick up a couple at the airport and their luggage, you can do it
in a 911. That's the difference.
I know.
That is the difference.
Everyday supercar.
Yeah, I know. I love it. Yeah. So, anyways, but something to consider. That's the thing I discovered about Porsche. I was like, oh, I get it, guys.
It's hard to beat a rear-engine car for packaging. However, it's the only way to beat it is with an EV.
I know.
Right? No engine is really good for packaging.
Oh, my God. I really can't. I mean, I want to experience a Rimac. I really want to.
Really? Just so you're hyped on that? You really?
I just think, well, one, what I love about it, the dude's from Croatia.
Yeah, he's
where Tesla is from. So he's like the real Tesla. You know what I mean? It's like he's got the Tesla
Nikola
energy.
Tesla.
Yeah, he's got the Nikola.
Isn't he? I hate to do this. I think Tesla's from the Czech Republic.
Oh, is he? I thought he was Croatian. Okay.
Almost positive.
Maybe not.
But it's close.
It's close. It's Balkany, Eastern European. I don't know.
There you go.
I'm not a geography guy. Yes, guys, kill me in the comments. But but what I like about it is that he's 33. He's a genius. He's got the Bugatti brand that he's going to mess with. Porsche's got 41% stake in the company.
45%.
45.
It's sorry to keep correcting you, but
please do correct me.
It's crazy that Porsche's investing this much into this company, so the technology must be much better than my understanding of it.
Yeah, and I just like the idea of other companies kind of making a dent in what Tesla, because what Tesla is the point of the spear, right? It punctured into, it created a real reality with EVs actually being desirable, efficient, fun, all that stuff. So I give it, my hat's totally off to 100%. Tesla, and I think that they killed it. But what I'm excited about is the competition to catch up and figure out super cheap electric car. And and I'm not totally sold on the Chinese cars yet, but something will come from there as well. But whatever, everyone's kind of making their moves, and I just like that there's this excitement about what are we going to do, or what's the car that's being developed in California that's running on hydrogen?
The
hypercar.
The Zinger,
there's the Zinger. It's a 3D printed car, but there's a hydrogen. It looks crazy.
I don't know.
I'll get the name of it, but I know that. Oh, here, I'll get the name of it because I want to drive that thing because it's fast as hell, crazy, 1,000 miles of range.
Yeah,
on hydrogen.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the nice thing about hydrogen is you just install a bigger tank.
Except that hydrogen currently not really readily available.
That's the other supply chain is where do you get it?
But Toyota seems to be really down. I mean, they're investing a lot in hydrogen technology.
Well,
yeah. You guys know something.
It could be a little bit of they don't have any EVs, so they do.
Because they're trying to catch up.
Well, it's also in California, cafe is pretty tough, so you have to have California carbon.
The Hyperion XP1.
I don't know this car. Good name. I like Hyperion.
Except that Hyperion is also the waste treatment plant.
Is it? Yeah,
it's a great street.
It's this thing.
It's a great street.
Oh yeah. Yes.
We'll see if they actually make it. But
I sort of got hydrogen car fatigue when every week there was a new hydrogen car, and then they all kind of.
I know it's just not. It's like when I hear hydrogen, I'm quasi excited.
You seem much more excited about hydrogen than most people I've ever met.
Well, you seem. Here's the thing, and we can wrap on this because I'm very. This has been awesome. I get the sense that you are very excited about the future of automotive, the future of mobility, the future of the car, as Jonny likes to say.
Car.
Is it fair to say you're more you've been a car guy for a while? You've driven some very cool cars. Are you Is this the most excited? Are you really like the future? Like, bring it on! Like you mentioned,
Right.
Yeah. Is this where are we at in your headspace?
I'm pretty excited. I think that there's some really amazing technologies on the way that people are actually implementing into actual production vehicles. And I think Tesla has really pushed that envelope. It's caused people to retool their production flow through and like how you can like iterate something and then make it. So I'm really excited. I think, I have friends that are like whatever about cars, but when they sit when they take a ride with me and I'm telling them about like what I'm experiencing and what I like about it, they start to get interested in it. And then I've had some friends say like, "Hey, where can I go driving like on a track or something?" And I'm like, "Well, you can go to Pecla, you can go to there's some other spaces or whatever." I think mobility is amazing, and I think that the intersection of robotics, essentially robotics, artificial intelligence, and whatever machine, choose an e-bike or like what am I thinking of? The what's the bird-looking teardrop shape EV that's coming out?
Bird-looking
Aptera.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Or something like Aptera. I could see my millennial friends like really digging it because it's weird looking, but it's hyper efficient. Whatever. Whatever. There's now there's tiers for everybody to get involved with, and I think mobility, whether it's even like something that helps people walk, like that weird Honda thing where it was like a saddle with two robotic legs that you like put your feet in, and it helps like your grandma walk up and down stairs. I just love that whole world of mobility. EV tolls, I would love to do that. Hydrogen power, or not hydrogen power, but electric power. What are they called? Alice, Aviation Alice, I think is from Israel, that turboprop.
Flying cars, flying drones.
The drone, personal drones.
And telepresence, all of that stuff. I think like there is an exciting future. I don't know if it's the Jetsons, it depends on if we can keep our together as a species, but if we can, and the economies of scale, the one part of capitalism that does work, which enables us to kind of actualize dreams, hopefully. I don't know. I think that there's a chance that it could be a pretty exciting future. I have to believe that because I've been excited about it since I was a kid. I remember looking at Car and Driver. Excuse me for bringing up
What's
another.
That?
It's a
I looked
magazine.
At it too.
It's about cars and
put
drivers.
it on paper.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. MotorTrend's about the trends of motors, and Car and Driver is about cars and drivers. Okay. But as a kid, like I remember getting that. There was the idea of the skateboard platform with a fuel cell. As the skateboard and the motors, and I was like, "Whoa, that would be crazy!" That was like 1986, maybe 1986.
GM showed one of those. It might have been like 91, but yes,
it was like I just remember being on my friend's bed, like looking at this, like, "Oh my god!" And then to think like, "Oh, I owned a Tesla." I was like, "That's what it is. I am driving that.
Right.
It is a fuel." So I mean, I think that, and that was like what 20, 30 years. I don't know, terrible time, whatever that was. It's a long period of time for that to like actualize. And now someone's like, well, I've got an idea for a thing, and then like 5 years later they've got a working prototype.
Yeah, or 2 years later. That's the crazy part is with digital everything. Like we should wrap up, but with back to the Hummer for a second.
Yeah,
that was 2 years. 2 years from like we should do this to we're driving them.
By the way, I'm really happy with the Hummer, only in that it serves that like, I need a huge giant vehicle segment.
Right.
And then I will say real quickly, the R1T, I think it's one of the most beautiful trucks. I'm not a big truck guy, but even though I'm from Montana.
Yeah. Well, I think the solution is we're going to have you back because you've been an incredible guest. And Reggie, Mr. Watts, this has been so much fun, and thank you so much for appearing on the InEVitable.
Yes.
And,
thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Yay, and happy first episode.
Thank you.